My friend and a few of his college buddies were going on a ghost hunt and had heard about some graveyard where children murdered by their mother had been buried. The graveyard was located off the main road, so my friend parked his car on the side of the road, and the group got out and followed the small path through the woods for a couple minutes to get to the graveyard. Once there, nothing exciting happened for the first 10 minutes or so, and they had tried everything the website or wherever they heard the story told them to do, with nothing resulting. They got bored and, being typical inebriated college kids, started taunting the supposed ghost of the mother. This continued for a few moments before they tired and decided to go back to the car, as one of the girls had to go to the bathroom. Once they got back to the car, my friend, the sober driver, tried opening the handle without unlocking the car because he hadn't locked it in the first place, but he found it locked. He attributed this to bad memory at the time. The group drove home laughing and talking like normal. After he had dropped all the others off at their homes, he went back to his own house. He got in at the same time as one of his roommates, who stopped and waited for him to pull in. The roommate had his phone out and it shined the light in the window when his friend pulled in as a joke. What he saw was tiny, baby-sized handprints all over the windows. As soon as my friend got out, he went into the house without saying a word to the roommate. The roommate, confused, went back to the car and tried to rub one of the handprints. They were on the inside of the window. To this day, my friend will not speak of his drive home after he dropped off his other friends, and has since sold the car without ever driving it again.
A young man moved into an apartment building in a quiet city suburb. The first night he slept in his new apartment, he was awakened at about 1 o'clock in the morning by a knock on his door. When he got up and answered the door, he found a young woman standing there. She apologized for waking him and told him that she was his neighbor. Her husband had beaten her up, and she asked if she could spend the night on his sofa. She promised that she would get up early the next morning and call her family to pick her up. The man nodded politely and agreed to let her stay, although it seemed strange to him. He got her settled comfortably on the sofa and then went back to bed. The next morning, as soon as he got up, he discovered that the living room was empty and that woman had already left. He assumed that her family had probably come to pick her up and she was now safe. That night, at the same time as before, there was a knock on his door. It was the same young woman. She told him that her husband had beaten her up again and asked if she could spend another night on his sofa. The next morning he woke to find that she had disappeared once again. The man grew suspicious and asked the landlord of the apartment building about his strange neighbor. The landlord's face grew pale as he said the apartment beside him was unoccupied. He said the woman who had lived there had died about a year before, after being beaten to death by her husband.
You could kick yourself. It's the middle of the night, or early in the morning, depending on how you look at it, and freezing cold because of you. Like an idiot, kicked off your blanket in the night, nearly entirely off the bed in fact, with only one lonely corner clinging to the edge of the bed. Sitting up, you take it in your hands, feeling that familiar fear from your childhood, that if you don't find something to cover yourself up, you're leaving yourself open to all sorts of supernatural horrors. You shrug it off with a chuckle and give the blanket a good hard tug, trying to pull it all the way up with one go. No luck. It seems to be stuck. Another sharp pull seems to free it a bit, and you work, tugging it back up, and trying to ignore that silly feeling of growing dread. Tug, 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 tug. There, finally. The blanket is mostly back up on the bed and you are safely beneath it once more, teasing yourself mentally for getting all worked up over nothing, until just before you drift back to sleep, you feel a tug from that one side still dangling down from where it had fallen before. Tug, tug, tug. Listen up. Listen very carefully to what I have to say. I have something very important to tell you. I've never really believed in the supernatural, but lately something very strange has been happening to me. It all started a few weeks ago. I was standing in line at the supermarket and I noticed that the woman on the checkout was staring at me. Her lips were twisted into an eerie smile. I tried to ignore her and just paid for my groceries, but that's when it happened. As I was leaving, she said, "Have a nice day." For a moment, I just stood there in complete shock. I couldn't believe what just happened. The second time I noticed it, I was walking down the street. There was a man coming towards me. He was staring directly at me and he was grinning from ear to ear. It was that same eerie smile. As he passed me, he said, "Good morning." I stopped in my tracks and stood there trembling, unable to believe what was going on. Since then, other people have spoken to me. I'm beginning to think I'm losing my mind. I even went to the doctor. He told me it wasn't possible. He said it couldn't happen, but yet I know it is happening. You may be wondering why I'm so frightened. You may think I'm overreacting, but here's the problem. I shouldn't be able to hear anything at all. You see, ever since I was born, I've been completely deaf. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you'd like to, you can follow me at Twitter. The handle is @FuzzyPantaloons, and I'll see you all next time.